So we've already tackled the main cast, but what about the creatures that inhabit this small Oregon town? During the 2 seasons, we got to see a lot of these strange creatures encounter our heroes, either helping or hindering them. Among these oddities, who was the most noble, who was harmless, and who was the most determined to cause damage? What's going on, guys? I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Gravity Falls Creatures, Good to Evil.
You have no idea what we're capable of.
For this list, we'll be focusing on the creatures our main cast comes across during the official episodes of the 2 seasons the show aired. If you haven't watched our main Gravity Falls Good to Evil, check the link in the description. As usual, we'll be starting with the most pure and noble characters and working our way down. These characters are the good. We'll begin with Fawn or Satyr. The Fawn was a side focus during Mabel's hunt for the unicorn, with Grenda even knocking one out.
Sleep now! Sleep!
The Fawn was mainly used to help show how fantasy-like the unicorn hideaway really was compared to the rest of the forest. The Fawn spends time playing music and simply enjoy being around the other magical beast. All in all, there's really nothing we can say negatively about this mythical critter. The Love God was mentioned in our main cast ranking, but being a demigod, he deserves being mentioned again. He was kinda lazy, wanting to focus on his musical performances. He got annoyed with Mabel when she tried using his potions, but we can understand why.
You're the one who's been stealing my stuff!
He even had something to make people fall out of love. While he did become frustrated and irresponsible, we rank him higher because, for the most part, he did try to warn Mabel against using it. And the matches he did make did pan out pretty well. Love was something he took seriously. He used it as a way to bring people together and cited it as a source of inspiration. We give the bronze medal of good to the Mer people. Since we really only see Mermando, we have to base much of what we know on him in his interactions with Mabel. He's a nice enough guy, being one of the less annoying of Mabel's romantic pursuits. He yearned to be with his family, and in his letters, had to call off his long-distance relationship due to him being married off.
Arranged wedding? Queen of the Manatees?
From this, we learn Mer people are loyal to one another and have a respectable, loyal family that helps them maintain peace in a chaotic and ever-changing environment. Time Baby wasn't stuck in Gravity Falls, but he and his time cops were very familiar with the place. When he was informed of Bill's Weirdmageddon, he showed up to try and set things right.
Surrender now or face my tantrum.
He was regarded as a very powerful being and didn't hesitate to take on Bill and his lackeys. It was a shame to see him defeated so easily, but the fact that he risked being destroyed is what places him so high on our list. The dinosaurs aren't exactly mythological, but they are unusual in a modern-day setting and presented themselves as a hazard. As we've seen in Jurassic Park, a bunch of giant reptiles roaming around where people are is probably gonna be a disaster. But as fearsome as these beasts were, they were driven by survival. They didn't do damage for the sake of causing trouble. It was just a side effect of them being led by instincts. So I guess life, finds a way. The cooler monster is more unsettling than malicious, but as we don't know its full intentions, we have to place it here. There's some divide on what this thing was meant to be, but there's no doubt it had no issue terrifying Dipper as he was retrieving ice. What it intended to accomplish or how it ended up in the cooler will likely remain a mystery.
What was that? Thought I heard some lady screaming.
The cursed Egyptian super termites were not present long, but did make an appearance when Gideon tried using them to destroy the shack.
Devour this shack with you inside!
Much like the dinosaurs, they ran on instinct and acted the only way they knew how. They weren't henchmen of any sort, but merely a tool used by the failed psychic. With that said, we arrived at the neutral territory. These characters fall in the gray area. There were a few ghosts on this show, but for this ranking, we're going to focus on the elderly couple and the logger. The couple was kind during their lifetime, but wound up haunting due to being harassed by teens coming in and out of their establishment.
That's why we hate teenagers so much.
They were put to rest when Dipper was able to soothe them with the playful innocence of a younger child, even if the method used was a little bit of an odd one. The lumberjack was a little more brazen with his approach, being a far more threatening force. We understand where his anger comes from, with him telling Dipper that he was swept away by a mudslide caused by the lack of trees, due to them needing the lumber to build the Northwest Mansion.
Wealthy blood will stay in the ground.
His curse was lifted when the promise was finally kept, and the commoners of the town were allowed to enjoy the yearly party. The Gobblewonker was the beast of the lake and stood as Gravity Falls' version of the Loch Ness Monster. It was able to conceal itself well, despite its size. It was more driven by the need to protect its territory. That being said, it did well to not randomly attack people, choosing to stay away from the humans that fished and played within the lake. The Grubloblin is known for one thing in particular, showing people their worst nightmares should they look directly into its eyes. Now that's a very dangerous weapon to have. We rank this beast higher in the list because it doesn't show much understanding of its surroundings. When it finally breaks out of captivity, it attacks at random, as if it was merely any other wild creature.
He's awarding himself stickers that he didn't even earn!
The only time we see a glimpse of higher intelligence is when he's tricked to see his own worst nightmare, showing it didn't want to become its own father. The multi-bear was an interesting creature. A bear is a fearsome animal that's basically teeth and muscle. Give it even more teeth that can snap you in half, and you have one scary customer. Still, the multi-bear wound up being fairly kind and understanding. He was more articulate and knowledgeable of the culture of humans than most of the other creatures around Gravity Falls. We mentioned him during our official ranking, but we have to remind people again about how his only request was to die to Disco Girl, and bonded with Dipper because of it.
I wish to die listening to my favorite song.
Even after being attacked, he gladly let Dipper walk out of the cave unharmed. The Manitors were reckless, but we cut them some slack because they did mean well. They were also mentioned on the official cast list, but we feel this list would be lacking without bringing them up again. They made an effort to help Dipper, but didn't seem to understand he could have easily died in various parts of their training.
Are you sure this is really necessary?
You want to be a man, don't you?
We give them props for at least trying, but again, do not send a 12-year-old boy to kill your enemy. That's low. Rumble Skirmish was a man of conflict, but hey, the guy was literally programmed to fight.
Winners don't lose.
He was brought into the real world by Dipper and had one goal: to fight the opponent set up for him. He was able to come around later on, being seen after Bill takes over and helping the people of Gravity Falls take their town back. An initial one-track mind rewarded some redemption points. The gnomes lose a lot of points because of their weird obsession with finding a queen. They proved to be not much of a threat due to their low intelligence and lack of physical strength, but they were major creepers when they initially interacted with Mabel.
Is this weird? Is this too weird? You need to sit down.
Aside from their queen hunting, they're also frequent thieves and even threaten and demean one another, even though they heavily rely on using each other to be able to survive. Unicorns are typically seen as elegant, wise, and sweet creatures, but the one Mabel interacted with? Not so much. She was vain, judgmental, and unpleasant. Even her voice was displeasing.
Come back when you're pure of heart.
The other unicorns even called her out as being a liar and using her status as a sought-out creature to get things from others. Finally, we've reached the dark side. These characters are the bad and the evil. Dipper, you had one job for the party. Don't raise the dead. The undead are gruesome, no matter what fandom you put them in. We would rank them higher, saying they're driven by instinct, but it shows when Suze turns into one of them that they do have some understanding of the harm they're inflicting.
Can I eat your brains? Yay or nay?
And since they aren't biting for survival, but just to spread the disease, we have to say that's pretty bad. The Summerween Trickster we're ranking lower because he's kind of a ridiculous guy. He was created from all the discarded gross candy that kids refuse to eat.
You must pay with your lives.
He was a well-spoken guy, but he was quick to anger, and the only thing that soothed him was someone finding the candy that made him delicious enough to eat. He gets dropped low in the ranks because he was driven by petty revenge and could have easily gotten closure had he just told the kids why he was insulted by them instead of making them trick or treat in fear for their safety.
Dude, you want some of this?
The Lilliputians were small, but a formidable force when they all had a set goal in mind. They finally teamed up only to try and hunt Mabel down, to cut her open and get a sticker from her stomach.
We could cut open her belly and get the sticker!
And the reason Mabel refused to give it to them in the first place was because they threatened to take out Pacifica. Harsh little guys. We will say that they are sweet when unprovoked though. Giffany gives new meaning to Nightmare Ex-Girlfriend. She's a program, like Rumble, but rather than being used for fighting, she was used as a dating simulation. She became attached to Suze after he tried using her game to get better at asking women out. When she found out he wanted to date real women, she tried to cut down his already shaky self-esteem.
I won't let another girl take you away from me!
When that failed, she attacked Melody and Suze on their date, insisting the handyman should be with her. On to our bronze medal of evil. The Arachnomorphs came up at a roadside attraction, with Stan falling victim to a woman who charmed him into a false sense of security.
I'm 80% certain you don't really love me at all.
Now, we totally get that gruesome monster or not, they would need to eat, but leaving the corpses when they were done so they can have a realistic roadside attraction, that is serial killer levels of creepy. The silver medal of evil goes to the shapeshifter the kids and Suze encountered in the old lab. He was cunning, manipulative, quick to adapt, and, oh yeah, terrifying.
How do you like my true form?
Not only did this thing trick Dipper into thinking Wendy was dead and morph into a weird, gross Mabel and Dipper-fused creature, but it made Dipper watch himself suffer a terrible fate by taking his form. Having nightmares about your own demise is scary enough.
Good luck sleeping tonight.
Seeing it in person like that would scar someone for life. Finally, our gold medal of evil goes to the demons. They mainly consisted of Bill and his crew of ghoulish figures.
Ready to cause some havoc, boys?
They devour people, cause havoc, and are feared by all other creatures. They're so strong, it takes a team of survivors to take them on, and even then, if you aren't knowledgeable about spells and loopholes, you'll likely struggle trying to take them out. What do you think? Who are the most good and evil characters among the Gravity Falls creatures? Let us know in the comments section. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.